It began with a whisper, a quiet order signed behind closed doors. No gunfire, no riots, no enemy at the gates. And yet, in a single night, millions of Americans lost their wealth without a single bullet fired. The year was 1933. The richest nation on earth had just made it a crime to own gold. Not to steal it, not to smuggle it, to own it. Families woke up to find that the coins in their drawers, the same ones their parents had saved through wars and hardship, had become illegal overnight. And the punishment? 10 years in prison. Imagine the silence that morning. A man at his kitchen table, turning a golden coin in his hand, knowing that what had once been the symbol of freedom was now contraband. The radio announced the news in calm, confident tones. This, they said, was for the good of the nation. But outside, a quiet fear spread. What kind of government could take away the very money its people trusted? The Great Depression had already brought America to its knees. Banks were failing by the thousands. Factories were still. Lines for bread stretched for blocks. Every dollar in circulation was supposed to be backed by gold, $20.67 per ounce, guaranteed by the U.S. Treasury. But when fear took hold, people stopped believing in the paper and demanded the metal instead. The vaults began to empty, and faith in the entire system cracked. That's when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt made a decision that would change the meaning of money forever. On April 5, 1933, Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102. It wasn't announced with fanfare, just words printed in the Federal Register. But those words carried the force of revolution. Every citizen was ordered to surrender their gold, coins, bullion, even heirlooms, to the government in exchange for paper dollars. The deadline was set, April 28. After that, anyone caught with gold could be fined $10,000 or imprisoned for a decade. A quiet confiscation, sealed with a signature.
People obeyed, most of them. They lined up at banks with bags of coins, trading history for paper. Some buried their gold in fields, hid it in walls, or melted it down into trinkets, hoping to outlast the storm. But fear has a way of forcing compliance. Within weeks, the government had gathered tons of gold from ordinary citizens. And for the first time in American history, private ownership of real money had become illegal. Officials said it was to stop hoarding, to stabilize banks, to restore confidence. But beneath the surface, something else was happening, something far more strategic. By taking control of all the gold, the government gained the power to revalue it, to expand the money supply, and to rescue the economy on its own terms. It was no longer bound by the limits of metal. It could print, spend, and borrow freely. In one stroke, Roosevelt had transformed gold from the people's asset into the government's weapon. For ordinary Americans, the change felt invisible at first. They still had their paper dollars, their wages, their banks, but those paper notes no longer represented gold in a vault. They represented faith. Faith in the same system that had just rewritten the rules. And faith, once broken, is not easily repaired. That spring, as the nation struggled to breathe again, few realized what had truly happened. The crisis had not just reshaped the economy, it had reshaped control. Money was no longer something you owned. It was something you were allowed to hold so long as those in power permitted it. And from that moment on, America would never look at gold or freedom the same way again. When Roosevelt took the people's gold, he didn't just take metal, he took control. The official story said it was to rescue the banks, to stop hoarding, to stabilize the dollar. But less than a year later, the truth emerged in numbers, not words. In January 1934, Congress passed the Gold Reserve Act, raising the price of gold from $20.67 to $35 an ounce. That single change devalued the US dollar by 40% overnight. The same government that had forced citizens to surrender their gold now made it instantly more valuable for itself. It was one of the most profitable trades in history, and it was legal because they had written the law.
For Washington, the move was genius. For the people, it was betrayal. The nation's savings had been exchanged for paper that now bought far less. The gold flowed into the vaults of the Federal Reserve, strengthening the government's balance sheet and giving Roosevelt the resources to fund the New Deal. With a single policy, America escaped the strict limits of the gold standard and entered the era of managed money. The Supreme Court would later be asked to judge whether this was constitutional, whether the government could rewrite contracts and seize property under the banner of national interest. In a narrow vote, the court sided with Roosevelt. It was a precedent that still echoes. In times of crisis, law bends to necessity, and necessity always serves power. By the end of the 1930s, Americans no longer thought of gold as theirs. It belonged to the state, guarded by vaults and promises. Paper dollars became not a claim to wealth, but a symbol of trust in authority. The transformation was complete. Money was no longer metal. It was belief, backed not by gold, but by government will. And belief, as history shows, can be printed far faster than truth. Decades passed, but the lesson of 1933 never disappeared. It only changed shape. When the next great crisis came, governments didn't need to seize gold anymore. They had discovered something far more efficient: inflation. Instead of knocking on doors to take wealth, they could simply print money and let prices do the work. No laws, no raids, just numbers on a screen, quietly draining value from every dollar saved. In 2008, when the financial system again trembled, the solution looked eerily familiar. The government stepped in, flooded the markets with new money, and saved the banks, not the people. Trillions were created to stabilize balance sheets, while wages lagged and savings eroded. It was the same story, written in softer ink. Protect the system, even if it costs the citizens who built it. Then came 2020, a global pandemic, panic, and another wave of money creation. Once again, governments promised rescue, and once again, the cost was hidden in the quiet theft of purchasing power. Inflation surged, assets soared, and the wealth gap widened. No one called it confiscation this time, but that's exactly what it was, a slow-motion echo of 1933.
Back then, the government took people's gold. Today, it takes their time, their effort, their savings, not by law, but by policy. When the value of your money falls faster than you can earn it, your wealth is still being taken. It just comes without warning, without headlines, without the sound of doors being knocked. And every time the cycle repeats, the same pattern reappears. The system is saved, the people pay, and history moves quietly on, pretending it's all for the greater good. 90 years later, the gold ban of 1933 feels like distant history, but its shadow still rules the world. The method changed, the principle did not. When the system is threatened, governments will always protect themselves first. Yesterday, it was gold. Today, it's data, digital accounts, and invisible controls. Tomorrow, it could be the balance in your e-wallet or the limits coded into a digital dollar. People once believed gold was untouchable until a single executive order proved otherwise. Now we believe our digital money is safe until the next emergency rewrites the rules again. The precedent already exists.
Wealth can be seized, savings frozen, promises revalued, and every change justified as stability. Real freedom doesn't live in vaults or on screens. It lives in knowledge, the ability to see through the illusion before it's too late. Because history doesn't announce its repeats, it whispers them. The Great Gold Confiscation wasn't an isolated act. It was a lesson, one the world keeps forgetting. And when the next crisis comes, it won't sound like thunder. It will begin in silence, with the sound of a new rule being signed.